Hey, MGTOWs. Just enjoying the last of my weekend. Man, is it an ugly, rainy bastard out there? We had that snowstorm and that big shelter I had out there worked great, but then it rained and the snow soaked up and it collapsed. I've got another one in the shed. I'll put it up as soon as I get a clear day. Yep, had a good weekend. Planted another plum tree in the front yard because the other one got shaded out and passed away. So, that's not actually what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to quickly mention was a long time ago, about 10, 12 years ago, they had this TV show called Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It was kind of comedy drama, right? And I happened to be skipping through a couple of things, and I happened to run into this. It's a musical version of the episode of the show, and it basically was where they were all affected by this weird force that caused them to sing what they were feeling, and all the secrets that people had were sort of revealed in that episode. But Spike, one of the characters who had a big thing for the main character Buffy, he was just like in love, and she wasn't having any of it. And I remember, like 12 years ago when I watched this, it was like, his song really resonated with me because it was like, wow, I remember. Oh man, I felt the same way just recently. Well, it seemed recent, but that was sort of how it was in my 20s. But man, let me tell you, when you get into your 50s, let me tell you, it's easy to forget what it was like, right? Because I watched this, right, and it didn't grip me the way it did like 12, 14 years ago, whatever. And it's like, it's easy to forget how overpowering those emotions, those bonding instincts, and those desires can be. If you are a younger man, it is just almost, it's just almost impossible to deal with. It's just too huge to. It's like kind of like white rider rafting. You're trying to hold on to something, and the waves are crashing you around, and you're trying to maintain some kind of control to keep from, like, going off the rails. and it's just about all you can do to hold it together. And it takes some effort to remember what it was like. But let me tell you, if you're in your 30s or 20s, 20s, or 30s, or even to 40s to some extent. But man, when you get into your 50s, nature finally gets off your back, and you're no longer addicted. I mean, sure, I could have sex. I really could. And if I had a reasonable candidate, I might be inclined to do something like that for old time's sake. But it's just doesn't grip you the way it did when you were in your 20s or 30s. It's almost like you're an entirely different kind of person. so and it's kind of, when you hear people like talking about how overpowering these things are, and you don't really think about it, you can fail to understand just what they're going through because, honestly, it's been 20 years since I've been overpowered like that, right? Uh, so it's important for older MGTOWs to just kind of, try to remember what it was like, so that you can empathize with the younger MGTOWs because they are just being like shaking around like a rag in a dog's teeth. Okay, that was basically one of the points I wanted to make. It's like, and I was surprised because I remembered how it used to grip me, but then it's not there anymore. It's just not. Have you, when you were, maybe a kid or something, and you reached out to grab a glass, like thinking that it was full, and then it turned out to be empty, and you grab it and your hand goes way up. It's like, whoa, that's, well, it's kind of the same surprise when you're expecting to have a tremendous amount of lust behind, driving you, but suddenly it's just not there, and a lot of guys might have become addicted to it, and that would explain the the sports car at age 50 and dating 20-year-old girls and whatnot, that some guys have. It's like their sex drive has dropped so low. They need to get a sexier woman to compensate for that lower sex drive. So that it kind of explains it, to some extent. So, okay. Well, another thing I wanted to discuss. So that's the first thing. Second thing I wanted to discuss was I just got summoned to jury duty, and I will be doing it in a week or two. And it's important. It's an important thing to do, in my opinion, because there could be a situation where you are the only person that stands in the way of some guy getting railroaded into something that he doesn't deserve. Some kind of crime or some kind of false accusation. It could be that you are the only one that stands in the way of that guy's freedom or being sent to federal prison. So it's important. I mean, there is so much bias in favor of women in the legal system. Man, juries tremendously need some red pill representation on those juries. I once, about 10 years ago, I got summoned to jury duty. This will be the third time. But this guy was just, he was like out of his mind with anger because of what his wife had done to him. And it was like, and then he was trying to represent himself. And it was a real train wreck. But I didn't actually get picked for that jury. I was, I guess the the prosecutor looked at me and maybe thought, oh, that guy knows what he's doing, and threw me off. So I'm not gonna commit myself. I think I said, well, if somebody's, when they were questioning the jury, if someone is guilty of a crime, they're guilty, and then I got kicked off. But I think what I will say this time when I'm questioned is something like, well, there's always gray areas in discussion, and the jury should hear the argument to decide, what the best course of action is. I'll be kind of wishy-washy. Maybe I can get on that jury. Now, the pay sucks. And man, it's right on my weekend. I mean, it just plopped right down on my weekend. But but I'm going to do it. Okay, so that was the second thing I wanted to discuss. And what was the third thing? I'll be right back. Yes. The third thing I wanted to discuss was just a reminder. I'm sure all MGTOWs pretty much know this, but there's a there's a guy named Demcad. I've been subscribed to him for about, geez, since probably 2007 on my other channel. But anyway, he was discussing why guys don't want to get married anymore, and I replied with my I think it's a pretty well thought out argument as to why men don't want to get married anymore, and that is that men, you know, I, we simply cannot have families anymore, right? Well, the only family you can really have as a guy is the family that you grew up in. Basically, if you have like a 40 or 50% chance of being divorced, right, and your kids taken away from you, and being kicked out of your family and your home being taken and everything, then, and I mean, if it happens so easily and so often, was that family ever really yours in the first place, right? Um, and those kids. I mean, people say that men can have kids, but I am of the opinion that men cannot have kids. Men can father kids, but the kids belong to the woman, right? Now, and if as soon as the woman wants, she can take those kids away from you. And if anything can be taken away from you that easily, that has to mean that it was never really yours in the first place. So that was my point. And then I went on to compare marriage and a man's place in marriage to this to football, right? We have up here in Seattle, we have a team called the Seahawks, right? And their marketing department either came up with or they stole the idea of the 12th man, right? Trying to make the fans think that they are somehow part of the team, right? And basically they sell all this marketing stuff, T-shirts and hats, that says the 12th man, and where in reality any of those fans can get kicked out of the stadium anytime the management wants, and that means that will suddenly drive home the fact that they are not on the team. They are just there to pay the bills and fund the whole operation, and but as soon as the team or the management or anybody like police or whatever want, they can throw you out of that stadium, and then suddenly you will realize that you are not part of the team. And that's exactly the way it is for a man in a marriage today. You can be technically married, you can technically be part of that family, but you are not really part of that family. You are just there as a temporary guest until the woman decides to throw your ass out. And those kids, they are not your kids, even if you're genetically related to them, because the woman can take them away anytime she wants. And now, all of this corrupt pedophile government apparatus is starting to take kids away from women too, and they have pretty much alienated men down to the point where we know that we have no power in that marriage, and we have no parental rights, And women, they might moan about it and everything when they have their kids taken away from them, but as far as what that the state has already accomplished its main goal, and that is to get men out of the equation, because we are the ones who will fight for our kids, and we have discovered that that we have lost, and uh, women will moan about it and whine about it, but they will not actually, take up arms. So it it won't be a big deal for the state to take kids away from women, especially if they've already kicked the husband out of the family. So basically, the only family I have is the family I grew up in. And if I married, I would not have a family. I would just be a temporary guest in that family. Okay, well, that's about all I wanted to cover. First point was, geez, man, I'm getting old. Okay, well, I guess I'll cut it off here. And remember, don't get married.